Wrap-ups are my favorite videos to film because all I have to do is talk about my opinions on books for like 15 minutes, and I edit, upload, and pub to YouTube, and then you guys watch it. And rip me to shreds in the comments below, because that's the nature of YouTube, apparently. I don't know why I do this. Why do I do this? Hashtag existential crisis. Hi guys, and welcome back to Slice of Mike. Today I'm talking about the books that I read in the month of June. I'm gonna start with a book that I didn't like very much, because it's always best to start with your worst foot forward? Yes, exactly. So the first book I have to talk about is Dear Cyborgs by Eugene Lim, which is just a book that I have nothing positive to say about, unfortunately. I think I came across this book on Amazon when I was reading through some of their book lists for the month or something like that, and it was described as a superhero book, but also like turning the genre on its head a bit. So I was really excited because I love superhero books, and I love especially when they either poke fun at tropes or invert tropes or find some new way to tell old stories, because let's face it, most superhero stories sound pretty much the same. I guess I'm gonna blame whoever wrote the blurb on the back, because this book is nothing like it's described as. The back of the book describes this as a story about two Asian American boys who bond over comic books, and then there's an alternative storyline going on where superheroes in another universe, or it might be the same universe, we don't really know, are fighting crime while also debating politics and morality and stuff like that. And it's not that the book wasn't about those things, because those characters are featured in this book, but there's a lot more going on and also a lot less. It's a very idea-driven book, and I will admit wholeheartedly that much of it went over my head, because they are talking about market economics and other things that I don't know anything about, so I was lost. I have nothing against this book, and I do believe that every book has an audience. I just think that it comes down to the editorial team and the marketing team to help that book find its audience. And the way that this book is being marketed right now, it just doesn't do it any justice, because I thought that I would be this book's audience, and I just am not. So it's not me, it's them, I guess is what I'm saying. Next, I have another book to talk about that is also a superhero-inspired story, but it actually was great. And that is The Refrigerator Monologues by Catherynne Valente. Catherynne Valente, if you will remember, and I hope you will, is the author of The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland and that whole series, which is like my favorite series of all time. So I will devour most of anything that she puts out there. However, even I will admit that there is some stuff that's just a little too strange for me. Call me old-fashioned. But this book I was very excited to hear about. My friend Matt, who's a bookseller, told me about it, and I just couldn't wait to buy it. So the girl in the refrigerator is a phrase that's used to describe women in superhero stories who are often used to advance the plots of the male protagonist. So they get thrown into refrigerators, or they get killed or abducted, or something terrible happens to them to spur the superhero to save them and to prove that he's a great person. So Catherynne Valente wrote an entire series of stories about these girls from the afterlife, where they have this kind of breakfast club type meeting every day where they talk about what happened to them and they tell their stories to each other. So Catherynne Valente was in New York a few weeks ago, and I went to go see her and get this book signed, and she was talking about her inspiration behind writing these stories. And she went to go see the Spider-Man movie, the second movie with Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, where Emma Stone, I can't spoil anything, but I guess I am. Anyways, something bad happens to Emma Stone. You might be able to guess what it is. And I don't remember what her character is called, but apparently it happened a long time ago in the comics too. So people were expecting it to happen, and then it did, and they got really upset about it. So Catherynne Valente was watching this movie at the theater, and the bad thing happened to Emma Stone's character, and she just got furious because of the way that the scene was presented and other aspects, I guess. So she wrote this whole series of stories inspired by the rage that she felt upon watching this movie, which I think is wonderful. I love Catherynne Valente's rage. I love this book. I love everything about her, and I am here for Catherynne Valente. The next book that I read in the month of June is The Nest by Kenneth Hopple, which is a middle grade book about a kid named, doesn't matter what his name is, probably not. I think his name is Steve, so we're gonna go with Steve. In this book, Steve is dealing with a lot of anxiety. He sees a therapist to deal with it. His parents try to help him, but they're honestly kind of at their wits' end and they don't know what to do. They're also dealing with an infant son who was born with some sort of congenitive disorder, and so he is at the hospital pretty much constantly, and they have to worry about him and Steve at the same time. So it's a lot for them, it's a lot for everyone, and the family is understandably very stressed. And as a result of being stressed, Steve starts having dreams or nightmares or visions or whatever you want to call them about angel-like wasps that visit him and tell him things and tell him that they're going to bring him a baby brother who isn't sick in the way that his real baby brother is. At first he's not sure if they're real or if he's imagining it or if he's losing his mind, but weird things start to happen here and there, and he becomes convinced that they are real and that he has to destroy this nest of wasps that is in his backyard, or else they're going to steal his baby brother and other bad things are going to happen. I actually love this book. It's very atmospheric. It is very much a summertime read, and it's kind of encapsulated just in this family and shows you how claustrophobic Steve's story has become because he's scared to leave the house, and he just has so much anxiety about doing new things and meeting new people that he can't deal with that much in his life. So his life has become very focused and very mired in these issues that he has to deal with on a day-by-day basis. I also get freaked out by how much I relate to older characters nowadays. Like, I used to obviously relate more to Steve and the child characters in books, but now I'm like, with the parents, thinking like, Steve, you need to calm down. It's gonna be okay. They've got other stuff to deal with right now. I don't know if that means I'm becoming older or if I'm like just a sad person, but either way, I thought all the characters in this book were great. It was a great family story, and it was great. I might have mentioned that. The next book that I read in the month of June is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This book has been all over BookTube, so you know what it's about, and I was really, really prepared to like it from all the stuff that I had heard about it, all the people that had reviewed it. Then I started it, and I just was not on board with the sense of humor and the characters, and there were just several things going on that rubbed me the wrong way. In the beginning, this book reminded me a lot of The Martian, which I didn't like, and Ready Player One, which I didn't like, where the sense of humor was kind of the focal point of the story, and I didn't like the senses of humor in those books, and so it was very distracting, and I couldn't enjoy the books at all, and so I felt like this book was kind of headed in the same direction. Then I got to around page, I don't know, 150, halfway through the book or so, and something clicked, and I really, really started to enjoy it. The story became less about the humor of the characters and more about the way they interact with each other, and really, at its heart, this is a book about family, finding your family, forgiveness, forming lasting relationships, finding love. Like, there are so many big themes here, and I thought they weren't being treated properly, and then in the end I realized that it really came together quite well. I'm not officially counting the number of books that have made me cry this year, but you can add one to that total. I'm probably at like 6 right now. 6 out of like 30. So 20% of the books that I've read this year have made me cry, for the record. The last book that I have to talk about is one that I don't have a physical copy of, so I'm just going to awkwardly put the cover up here, and that book is How to Survive a Summer by Nick White. This is a book that I read about on NetGalley. I read the plot synopsis. Full disclosure, I did get a review copy of this book to talk about on my BookTube channel, but I was drawn to it because it wasn't really presented as a gay coming-of-age story, because I kind of feel like I've tapped out on gay coming-of-age stories for the time being. I wanted more an exploration of how an adult gay man deals with his family and deals with other aspects of being gay and how that affects his life. So I was very much prepared to read a story like that. I didn't really know what it was about going into it, but it's about this guy named Will, who is originally from the South, and he's in grad school now, somewhere in the North, and he doesn't really deal with a lot of aspects of his past. He doesn't talk about them. He likes his past to stay in the past. So his friends kind of assume that something weird went on, but they don't really know what it was. Gradually, though, you learn more pieces of his past, and it becomes a really strange story of his time at this gay conversion camp. I think they call it a gay therapy camp or something. Back when he was a teenager, his dad sent him there, and Will was understandably traumatized by what went on there. The other aspect of this book that I should mention is that based on Will's experiences at this camp, there was a book that was written from another camper's perspective a while ago, and then there was a movie that was made out of it, which kind of prompts Will to go tackle the terrors of his past and figure out how to deal with things long after they've happened. So there's this movie that's kind of like a slasher flick that's part of the plot. I don't like to say this about books very often because I feel like it comes across as judgy, but this is clearly the author's first novel. I feel like there just wasn't the right flow of material here. The plot was very slow in parts, and the characters sometimes did stuff where I was just like, why did you do that? That made no sense. Like, Will has several breakdowns where he, one, leaves college and goes off in search of his family because he's got stuff to deal with. Then he throws his phone away. Then he, like, stops calling people, or something else happens where I'm just like, why would you do that? Like, you're dealing with stuff, but also that's clearly not a good decision. But at the same time, there are passages where I was pretty much awestruck by how effectively the author could pin down certain feelings or describe certain things, and I was actually really impressed overall. And this was another book that made me cry, so you can add 2 for the month of June to the number of books that made me cry this year. So those are all the books that I read in the month of June. If you have read any of the books that I talked about in today's video, please leave a comment below letting me know what you thought of them. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. It means a lot to me. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will talk to you all very soon. Bye.